Please be advised this podcast may contain coarse language and adult themes and is not for children. Listeners' discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Remote Listening Party Podcast, where we search for unique music and discuss it. I'm your host, Peter Boyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Shaye McDonald.
Hey, everyone.
Peter Rosene.
Hello.
And Nicholas Voll.
Hello, hello.
This is episode 3, and if you haven't listened to the RLP podcast before, what we do here is we take turns presenting a unique album that the others haven't listened to before, give a brief introduction, and then listen to the album together before discussing it. We encourage you, the listener, to pause the podcast when prompted so you can listen to the album as well. So how we doing, guys? What have we been listening to lately?
I actually prepared a list.
Oh, he's got a list.
It's a short list. It's a short list.
Everybody with their lists.
Yeah. The new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album came out. I have not listened to it all the way through, but I on the way home from the office yesterday, I've heard the first 2 or 3 songs, and it's
same.
A little funky.
They have a new album?
Of course they do.
Right?
Of course they do.
Like,
I didn't know they did, but I'm not surprised they do.
Horns,
it's their first album of the year.
Sound. It's got like that 70s kind of I don't know, horn jam band vibe going on.
A little bit of funk, maybe.
Yeah, very funky.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Exactly. It's rocking. It's a happening. I mean, I only heard like 3 tracks on it so far too, but it's pretty groovy.
See, I generally prefer like their harder rock, their metal.
I do too,
more than like what you're talking about there. But I'll surely give it a listen at some point.
Yeah. I picture seeing it live, and man, it would be a lot of fun.
Seeing them do anything live would be phenomenal.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next time they come through, we've got to try to catch them.
To go. Oh,
I've heard they're really hard to get tickets to go see.
Yeah. They came to Chicago, I want to say 2 years ago or something like that, and just general admission tickets, like for way back, was like $150 a ticket.
Jeez.
Just because they so rarely come through.
What else you got on that list, Pete?
Let's see. I listened to this really awesome, from a recommendation, I got onto this really awesome Joni Mitchell live album. It's called Shadows and Light, which I don't really listen to Joni Mitchell that much, but the reason that I picked it up was because Pat Metheny is on the guitar and Jaco Pastorius is on the bass, and they're like, if you guys don't know, they're like big time jazz fusion 70s, like very virtuoso kind of players that are, Jaco Pastorius is like maybe regarded as one of the best bassists ever, and Pat Metheny is like excellent on the guitar. But Joni Mitchell, great vocals. Like I said, it was a live concert, super good. So if you ever get a chance, Shadows and Light by Joni Mitchell is it's a solid listen. It's got a lot of jazz fusion in it, which I like. So it was kind of a natural fit for me. Between the Buried and Me came out with a new single, Things We Tell Ourselves in the Dark. It's fine. Yeah, that's probably those are the main things. I've been re-listening to a few things, but yeah, those are the new listens.
I've gone through just kind of like looking for new stuff that honestly that I could present on this podcast. And it's so rare to come by something new that really excites me to that point where I'm like, I gotta show this. I've got to show this to other people. I want to talk about it, But I have come across a couple things. I don't want to reveal those yet, but some things that I still thought were really good that I listened to. I listened to a little bit of an album called What's Your Pleasure by Jessie Ware. It's got some disco vibes. I mean, like real throwback, kind of like 70s disco. But yeah, it's a really solid, fun, good groovy album.
Is it new?
Yeah, I think it came out last year. No, actually, sorry, 2020. But
Okay.
yeah, it's fairly
Relatively
new.
new.
Yeah. And then listened to a little bit of this album called Tether by Anastasia, which did just come out this last week. I've only heard a few tracks on it, but I'm interested to listen to more of it because it's very, I don't know, it's very emotive, and her voice is just fantastic. Just kind of like a singer songwriter style music. That's mostly what I've been listening to. Kind of combing through my so some of the sources. I do want to do a shout out for like one of my favorite areas that I find new music. It's always interesting. Is the Attic magazine? They're always like they do an album of the day every day, and then every month they'll do like a roundup of what they thought were the coolest listens of the month. It's pretty much always some kind of experimental music in there, and it's just constantly like boundary pushing and just interesting stuff. So if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely check out the Attic magazine.
Is that like a storage space at the top of my house, or can't stop doing drugs attic?
uh, maybe
The
a little bit of
former.
both, honestly. it's,
I'm just
it's
looking
a
for
mixture of
spelling.
both of those. Yeah, ATTIC,
Okay,
the Attic.
okay.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about like genre of music. I was like, well, it feels like digging
Interesting.
through, because sometimes it's not all new stuff. Sometimes they're like highlighting stuff from decades ago that is just sort of random finds.
Nice. No,
But it's always cool stuff, and it's from all around the world too. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's
yeah.
looking interesting.
that's kind of what we try to do here, except one album at a time, one per week.
Yeah.
Well, between random playlists at work and our upcoming album, Peter, I actually went and checked out. So we had the session last week about Eco by David Maximichik, and I went and checked out his I guess the twin album Ego, and it was actually pretty good. It wasn't so far different from Eco like it was described, but it was definitely a little bit different, like different enough. It was still good stuff.
It didn't feel like intensely contrasting to
No,
Eco.
not so much
Mm.
as like that little bit of the interview that I read off made
Yeah.
it sound like. So I
Sometimes
don't know.
those subtle differences are a lot larger to the artists themselves.
Yeah,
Again, Nick and I working on an album together, sometimes we're like, oh, we made this huge change, but to the average listener, they're going to be like, yeah, it sounded the same to me.
what are you
Yeah.
guys even talking about? I don't hear what you guys are talking about.
Yeah. No, we had a session before our released episodes, where Shay had shared the album Birdie Island by Howie Lee. And while we were talking about it, Shay had brought up the desire to look into some avant-garde artists, and so I kind of went through and made a list for him. But while I was going through and looking at some of those artists, I was just like, man, I really want to listen to some of this stuff again. So I did listen to an album by Telephone Jim Jesus that A Point Too Far for Astronaut is the album that I listened to. They have another one, Anywhere Out of the Everything, that I will probably listen to in the next couple days. But that was a fun listen. Put it on while I was playing some Rocket League. But then last album, again, Eco by David Maxim Mitchik. I had brought up that it kind of reminded me of the band Anathema. So I listened to a little bit of that. I've been listening to Anathema since I was in high school.
Oh,
Um,
dude, you're the person who got me into. I even thought about. I went through a stint of listening to Anathema for it's
oh,
like before
nice,
going back to school, and yeah, totally because you're the one who recommended them to me, and they've got a really unique sound.
sweet,
So that
yeah.
sounds like a cool record.
Yeah, I was just listening to some of their greats. The album Judgment, the album A Natural Disaster. A Natural Disaster is one that I had put in the chat, was kind of closest to the album we listened to last week. Still earmark differences, but it's just a feel good, like, rock. They're a little bit edgelord, sort of, whatever, gothic, this and that, but it's a lot of fun. Um,
Cool.
and then Olafur Arnold's released a
Oh,
new
yeah.
EP
Ooh,
recently,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know
with
that either.
a couple of other people. I don't know if they're hinting towards a new album or what, but it was very chill. It was actually, I sent it to my mom because I know she appreciates stuff like that. I got my mom into Hammock years ago, and
Oh,
she
nice.
she listens to that constantly. But yeah, it was a real good, just feel good, chill, semi-ambient. Yeah, it was real nice. And then I listened to Breathing or Breath Patterns by Arc Lab. Kind of same vein, honestly. Very chill, very piano heavy. Just nice, easy listening.
I do want to throw in my last. I had forgotten. I watched with a friend a movie that I'd never seen before. This is music related. It's called Phantom of the Paradise. Do you guys know that
No.
movie? Okay,
No.
it's Peter. Am I remembering it correctly that you're a Jesus Christ Superstar fan?
That's my favorite musical. Yes.
Okay, this is kind of a 70s rock. It's sort of like I mean, very 70s kind of rock musical, takes place in contemporary times, and it's like a Phantom of the Opera sort of reboot in like a 70s kind of like concert hall. And it's okay. It was directed by Brian De Palma, who I am typically pretty lukewarm on his movies, but whenever I was watching, I was like, man, I bet Peter would like this, because this is just such a like, it kind of has that vein to it. So anyway, that I'd forgotten that one.
What? And so, Phantom of, I mean, are they alluding to Phantom of the Opera, or is that just completely?
Oh yes,
Nice.
yes. You watch it and it's clear, yes, that it is a Phantom of the Opera.
Paul Williams is part of the cast. Looks like.
The composer,
Yeah.
he plays the villain.
Oh,
It's
I'm looking at
hilarious.
some of the images.
Yeah.
Also,
It's
yeah,
hilarious,
looks wild.
man. His character is ridiculous. It's so of its time. I can only imagine. It's so of its time.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
All right. Well, Peter, you're presenting the album today. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so I told myself I was not going to do another metal album, since that was the last thing I did. I was going to try and switch things up a bit, but so this week I chose Blood Incantation's newest album, Absolute Elsewhere, that came out in 2024, last year, and they're going on tour. They're touring this whole album, and they're going along with Krallice, who is opening for them. And Krallice is one of my favorite bands, and I've never seen them before. And so I couldn't miss it. And I was like, okay, well, in celebration of that, I wanted to pick this. So, like I said, this came out last year, and this Blood Incantation's a Colorado. I think they're from Denver. And they've been around since maybe 2011, and their first album, Starspawn, came out in 2016, and it's pretty much a straight ahead death metal. There's a little bit of progginess to it, but really good nevertheless, but very heavy. And then next came Hidden History of the Human Race, which was this really acclaimed album of 2019, and they add a lot of science fiction elements into the visuals and the lyrics and stuff, and it's kind of got this space odyssey sort of vibe to the themes of their music, and again, kind of layering in more progginess to it. And then they came out with this weird album in 2022 that's called Time Wave Zero, and you all may like it more than I did. It's a straight ambient record. They just came out with a full ambient album, sort of like Wolves in the Throne Room did. and just very different from their other music. And then they came out with this EP in 2023 that mixes the two styles. It's called Luminescent Bridge. And then finally, the year after, they come out with this Absolute Elsewhere album. It's sort of the perfect mix of a lot of that stuff. They recorded it. There's a really good documentary on YouTube, and they recorded in this German studio. And the studio is in Berlin. And I was looking up the number of who had recorded there. It was like David Bowie and Tangerine Dream, Depeche Mode, Marillion, Ministry, and it's sort of got like all of these. It's kind of like the DNA of that kind of music is sort of infused in this album, and it's a really great experience. It's so proggy, and I know that Shaye I know has listened to this album before, but Peter and Nick, I know that you all have kind of vibed with prog rock, 70s prog rock before, so this hopefully isn't coming from a totally unusual or difficult listen to kind of space. It's stuff that I think it ties in a lot of familiar elements to it. But so yeah, it was my favorite album of last year, and yeah, again, just super psyched to go see them in July in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be up in your all's way in Indianapolis, so maybe I can swing by and see you guys. Shaye, I don't know, you may be joining for the concert, but should be a good time.
Yeah, I have my ticket. So
awesome. Yeah.
I'm stoked. Can't wait.
Again, today's album is Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation. Please pause the podcast now to listen to the album.
Well, I love this album. I think that it's it's for me at least, it's the perfect mix of two things that I love so much in music, which are 70s progressive rock and death metal. I mean, it's just, I love, as soon as I heard, and I liked their previous albums before this, but whenever that first song, so it's obviously it's separated into 2 3-part songs. You know, there's the Stargate is the first part, the Message is the second part, and each one has a tablet 1, tablet 2, and tablet 3. And so in part 1 of the Stargate, I just remember listening to it for the first time, and those synths, or you all can probably tell me what they were better than me guessing, but it sounded like sort of a synth solo happening, and then it goes into this great kind of 70s guitar solo style, and I was like, I love this album. It's so good. It just combines so many of the things that I really like in music these days, and also, like I had said at the top of the episode, I mean, this goes back to things that I just loved as a kid, and being exposed to Yes and Pink Floyd and Genesis and King Crimson. I mean, even the song or the album title is some kind of, it's an allusion to another kind of forgotten, it's hard to find, a progressive rock album. It comes from this 70s prog album that I think maybe the band is called Absolute Elsewhere. Anyway, it's Bill Bruford is the drummer who of that band, who is famously the first drummer for the 60s and 70s prog and 80s prog band Yes, and he was also the drummer for a stint in King Crimson during their trio era, and it's just, the whole thing is just infused with this 70s progressive rock vibe. And I mean, as I had said, again, you know, where they recorded the album, they bring in all of this kind of, you know, new wave and synthesized music, even in the production studio where they had recorded this thing. And like I said, if you all have any interest in music recording and, you know, production, there's a really good documentary, a 3-part documentary series on YouTube about the making of this Blood Incantation album that actually I think Shaye, you had told me about, and it's excellent. It just tells you everything about how they, you know, how their writing style and what they wanted to bring to the album, and I think it comes out so well. It's mixed super well. I also really like in the second song in Tablet 2 of the Stargate, there's just that great overlay with, I don't know what movie it's from, but just that dialogue scene between those characters. It's just all of that stuff being brought into it. It's got such a cool vibe to me. So that I really enjoyed listening to it again.
This is probably my favorite metal album that I've heard in recent years. For similar reasons, I think it checks a lot of boxes for me in terms of what I tend to gravitate towards or really like anyways. But I think that it brings some elements together that are in a really cool way that I haven't heard before. Like you mentioned, Pete, bringing in the kind of synth elements, the proggy synth. There's a huge, I think, influence of Tangerine Dream here. I think you even mentioned that it's the same studio that they recorded the album in. But they wear their influences on their sleeve, definitely, because there's Pink Floyd in there, there's Sabbath, there's 90s thrash metal, and it all is kind of linked together around this prog foundation, this 70s prog foundation, in terms of like the composition of it and the way that it flows, which, by the way, is another thing. I think they have a really keen sense of pacing, like throughout the album. It just it changes up frequently and in interesting ways, and never really grows stale. And yeah, so I think that overall it's a cool blend of those elements, like psychedelic, space rock, prog, doom metal, electronic prog, like 70s era electronic prog, and ambient even, because I think there's also a really clear focus on the mix. There's excellent mixing in this, where there's a focus on the sense of place of all of the elements in a kind of space, so to speak. There's I can get into that a little bit later, but there's obviously, there's an ambient influence here too, because there's underneath everything, when the quiet moments happen or when things are dialed back a little bit, you can hear the rich textures of, that are happening even underneath everything. There's an analog warmth to everything as well. I'm not sure how they recorded it exactly. I can't remember if they recorded everything digitally or if they did do it on tape or what, or ran it through tape somehow. But there's definitely an analog warmth to everything, and I think that also serves to blend everything together. Really cool journey that felt like, Pete, you mentioned the dialogue that happens there. I kept getting this sense that all the voices, including like the growling, the doom growls and stuff, they all feel like POVs. I felt like I was on this spaceship moving through an intergalactic journey, and passing through these kinds of bits of consciousness that were trapped in space-time, like catching signals, transmissions. Like that's what the dialogue, the little bits of radio transmission dialogue kind of felt like to me, which also had huge 70s prog vibes too. And then, it would go to like the doom metal growls and that deep growly voice, which felt like this omnipresent, omnipotent POV of, some kind of ominous voice from the distance, beckoning towards the Stargate. And then, there's a point in there too where you get to like a Pink Floyd kind of esque voice that feels hopeful and guiding in a way. And yeah, they all feel like aspects of consciousness or something that are like that you're passing through and meeting along the way on this intergalactic voyage. really cool way to tie everything together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, altogether it felt like a journey.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also, I mean, yeah, the name, the Stargate. There is that kind of, I think back to watching Stargate SG-1 and Stargate
Yeah.
Atlantis as a young person, and whenever I had heard that or saw that as one of the song titles, I was like, that's kind of these sort of journeys throughout the galaxy, sort of doing this exploration was sort of what I pictured, you know.
Conceptually, like narratively, I had definitely Stargate SG-1, Event Horizon, and Doom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like those were kind of like the 3 tent poles that I had narratively.
Yeah, just to reiterate, like the combination of all the different genre influences they had, harkening back to all the classics that we mentioned, Pink Floyd, Sabbath, and like the way we've covered a few different albums that have just like had seamless transitions between one sound to the next, and I think they did this so well in so many parts of this album. Pete mentioned the 2 sections, the Stargate 1, 2, 3, and then the Message 1, 2, 3, which I didn't notice. If I'm going to be honest, I didn't notice till he pointed it out after the album had already played. And that's just such a progressive metal like cliche to do. I think it's cool. I'll say that, but
oh, it's totally
right
yeah.
there.
The only thing they were missing is a song entitled Cygnus, or there's like these prog songs that it's just like everybody has to, it's like Mars Volta or Rush or whatever. You've got to mention the constellation Cygnus for some reason. I don't know why.
It's just one of those things.
You got to check the box.
But I also,
it's not prog.
as far as like recent metal acts that they kind of reminded me of, there's this Norwegian group called Agabas, which they describe themselves as jazz metal. Pete, I think you would love them.
I'm writing their name down right now.
And also a little bit of Death Heaven.
Oh,
not that I know a whole lot about them, but the stuff I have listened to them, like there's definitely that, and they're more of a recent thing rather than like the 70s, 80s groups that are obvious influences on these guys.
Death Heaven's great. I love them.
Yeah.
And speaking of that Death Heaven sound, I was picking up this time a lot more black metal, kind of that sort of a lot of tremolo pick guitar, and there'll be these sort of, I don't know, these synth ambient chords hanging in the background. A lot of black metal has that, for people who don't have any context for that. That's a big black metal sort of vibe. So I think that you're probably spot on with the
just adds to the full ambiance of the metal sounds. Like Definitely. It's epic. It's got to have that. Yeah.
Peter, what'd you think?
Not to beat a dead horse here, but I got to read from my notes. I had said, borrowing much from the old gods, King Crimson, yes, Genesis, Weather Report, Black Sabbath, Metallica, Pink Floyd, Iron Maiden, Pantera. I had wrote what Shay said earlier. They obviously wear their inspirations on their sleeves. But Blood Incantation has found a way to bring the 70s prog rock into the modern era with their own death metal spin. With the time signature changes, the savory licks, the melodic breakdowns, and the unique instrumentations, they show the earmarked staples of prog rock down to its core. The metal aspect was sometimes a bit on the nose, but that seems to be part of their signature sound, of which I can appreciate. But at times, the metal feels a bit tacked on, as they do such a great job with the progressive rock part that the metal portion almost feels a little needless to me. That is my own preference, just because, I tend to not go quite as heavy in my usual music tastes. But I feel like there was so much value in the progressive rock side of it, that at times I almost felt like the metal portions were were a little superfluous.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it, because it was still really great, and the production value was top notch. I mean, at no point was anything too overbearing or out of place. Like Shay said, their pacing was great. There was just such a huge atmosphere that is really hard to attain in music production, just because a lot of times you have so many instruments and things fighting for the same space. It's hard to have a large sound like that that still sounds good. But man, they fucking nailed it. So it was a really great journey, and I super enjoyed it, even though, yeah, especially the growling and stuff is not my usual cup of tea. But again, anytime Peter, you've brought a metal album to us, it's always been one where the vocals are used instrumentatively. That's not a real
Hmm.
word.
Instrumentally.
Yeah, instrumentally. Uh, they do a good job of making it a part of the music instead of just tacking on some heavy
Yeah.
sounding vocals. So it was done
Yeah.
super well. I
I think they also make it like thematic,
Yeah.
which to me is key because like one of the things that rips me out of the experience a lot of times with metal bands that have growling vocals, or just metal bands in general. I mean, because for one thing, you're working with a set of sounds that, I mean, it's the traditional rock band, right? Usually you've got your drums, your bass, your guitars, and your vocals, and how far conceptually can you push that? And so to me, it's like I tend to appreciate when the concepts that they've chosen for their album somehow lend themselves to the textures of, kind of like what I was saying with the growling vocals on this. It really felt to me like some kind of demonic doom-esque, omnipotent spirit or voice or something calling out
Hmm.
from like deep time space.
Yeah,
Like,
it almost has like a diegetic aspect to it where it's like it's part of the it's not just vocals laid over music. It's like part of it's like a
right,
character in the story, It's like
right.
a voice actually in the story with the music actually over top of that as opposed to the reverse.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, is because a lot of times with like metal bands, they might be talking about they have these doom vocals or something, but the concepts that they're talking about, it's like they could be singing that in in any other
Yeah.
voice and it would be just as effective. It's like, why are you singing about fucking like crazy prophetic Egyptian stuff, and it just doesn't seem like it fits, or like, why
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
singing about whatever it is, if you're trying
Yeah.
to like talk about something, or even put any kind of substance to it, you
It
know what
fits
I mean?
perfectly here. It fits
It fits
perfectly in
very,
this
yeah, it fits
context.
very
Yeah.
well, and that's why I think that it they know that.
Is
I think
is
they're
not that
dialed into that.
concept though exactly what Tool was making a statement on in, I don't remember what that track was in Anima, where he's speaking in like this heavy like German, and it sounds really coarse and
Oh
like,
yeah,
but
Die
really
Ehre von Satan.
it's
it's
really
supposed
a
to sound
rest it's a
like a
recipe.
rally, but it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah, it
sugar
sounds
cookie
like a
recipe.
rally.
Yeah, it's a cookie recipe.
It's a
Yeah.
no bake cookie recipe. Like, I think that was
Yeah.
their comment on that. It was just like
Yeah.
the context is important and how you relay it. And so yeah, like these other bands are like, oh, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. We can be talking about corpses and blood violence, whatever. But if you're like, if you're just tacking it on because you feel like you have to scream it, like, then
Hmm.
what are you really doing? But like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the main uh delivery method of the vocals was the growling tone throughout the album. It was fitting, but they weren't like stuck to that because in what was it, track 5, they hearkened to Pink Floyd so hard.
Yeah.
That was the first time they did like regular vocals, but it was to show like, we don't have to growl everything. Like we can do this. And I was really surprised at how nice that sounded.
I think you
Yeah.
could even see the transmission dialogue bits as a kind of vocal element too. They add context to it and they add meaning. Like I picked up on only little pieces of, especially in like Stargate Tablet 2. I was listening really closely, but it's similar to all the vocals in it. I think the clearest vocals are the ones in track 5, like you were talking about the Pink Floyd ones, where you can really pick up on what's actually being said. In terms of all of the transmissions and the growls and everything, you can, for me at least, you can only pick up bits and pieces of it. And so like I heard this little bit in the Stargate Tablet 2. It's like, if you're talking about cells and, and then it's like indistinguishable, and then it's like they'd have a chance, and then indistinguishable on the planet, and like I only caught like bits and pieces of it, and I'm like, I don't know what but my brain is filling in the gaps. And I'm starting to like, I just get this sense along with that cool doubled arpeggio synth that was, opening and closing the filter, and this really neat, I love that flute sound, the flute solo sound that they did over the top of that. And it's so vibey that, your brain is going to, it fills in those gaps. It's like all throughout the texture of the vocals, whether it be transmissions or the spacey proggy or the doom ones, the texture is just as important as what's being said.
Well,
So,
and it sounds
there.
like in that second Stargate track, it sounds like Tangerine Dream did at least did the lead synth Mellotron programming for that.
I wrote
that song.
Tangerine Dream on. I was like, this is a 100% nod to Tangerine Dream.
Well, they did it.
Okay, well, shit. All right. Yeah. Okay, and then Pink Floyd did that other part later, right?
Right, yeah. It's like David
In the
Gilmour for
message,
sure
too.
was the vocalist on that record, on that song. Yeah. Well, Peter, I think that you, in your description of the proggy sound matched up with the death metal sound, that's really how I got into this kind of music. Was I knew that, I had graduated from college, and I was obsessed. Almost 100% of what I listened to was 70s prog rock, and I'm like, well, shit, there's only so much of this out there. So what do I go to next? And I had some, I did have some background with metal before, but then this kind of seemed like the logical progression of what would Yes, or what would King Crimson maybe even more aptly, or Pink Floyd be doing now? If they were a band dropped in the modern era, what would they be doing? And I felt
That is exactly
they'd
what I
probably
just
be doing
wrote.
some kind of extreme progressive metal. And so that's kind of how listening to Opeth and Between the Buried and Me, the sections that they bring into their music that are the really melodic and the really non-death metal sounds, I was just like, oh my God, these are just some of the best prog rock I've heard in the modern era. And then you just sort of like, oh, this is where it is. This is where you find that groundbreaking, cutting edge sound is in these extreme metal bands. And so I'm like, well, I've got to if I'm going to listen to this more, I'm just going to listen to these songs to get to those prog parts. And then the more you listen to it over and over again, you sort of get used to that. You kind of acclimate to the harsh vocals, which at the beginning were very off-putting for me and were very difficult. But I was like, well, if I'm going to listen to this kind of music, and if I'm going to get scratch that itch for the prog stuff that I loved, all of that King Crimson and Pink Floyd, this is where I've got to go. Well, I'm going to have to listen to this stuff. And it gradually became much more palatable over time. So that's sort of, you're coming at it from a very similar mindset of, I was like, I don't really like this vocal style, but man, I love this melodic stuff in here.
It's your black coffee. I mean, I like, you first try black coffee, and you're like, Jesus, this needs something. I need sugar, I need cream, and everything. But you start
Yeah.
getting used to the coffee, and then you drink it black, and you're like, okay, now I can taste all the undertones here. Like
Yeah.
I can have
Yeah.
an appreciation for, the tartness or the earthy tones and blah blah blah. So I totally get that. I mean, I have acclimated more to metal ish music over the past several years, more so than I ever did. I
Hmm.
used to be, I wouldn't touch any of it. It just wasn't my sound. But once I found a few groups like oh the their dogs were astronauts, or who does, hold on, I'm gonna look up something. And so I watch you from afar. Finding some groups like that that did like the instrumental metal. The Endless
Hmm.
Shimmering by And So I Watch You From Afar was kind of the first thing that I don't know why or how, but it just kind of like popped up and I took a listen to it, and I guess I was in the right headspace and it clicked. And I was just like, this is fucking sick. Like,
Yeah.
where's this stuff
Yeah.
been? And
Yeah.
it's all instrumental, but it's just the way that they bring about like a whole story and a whole album experience, instead of just let's shred guitars and hit the double bass
Yeah.
as fast as we can. And
Yeah.
so I've slowly been getting more and more into some of the more metal stylings and whatnot, and kind of exploring
Hmm.
stuff. The vocals again can still be kind of grating to me, but it's very refreshing. It's nice to find groups like this, or what was that one? Gold Star by
Yeah. Imperial Triumphant.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Listening to that was very nice. That was very refreshing. So it's
Hmm.
been finding stuff. I'm picky and choosy when it comes to that. Same way I am when it comes to country music, honestly.
Hmm.
But no, I've definitely gained a lot larger appreciation for stuff like this.
Yeah. It's out there. It's that music. It's the music centric um, take on metal. Instead of the vocal centric, it's much more of the music centric composition. And before you know it, you're like, okay, I've kind of acclimated to the harsh vocals. Where can I go to continue on with stuff that's like really technical and avant-garde and different? And then it's like before you know it, you're like listening to stuff like Gorguts and I'm trying to think of some other band that have these gnarly names, but it's like they are a musician first kind of band, and they are, maybe someday I'll subject you to Gorguts, but the name is a little bit of a misnomer. They sound really hardcore, but it's a little bit of a misnomer. But yeah, stuff like that where you just, I don't know, you crave it. Or like the Dillinger Escape Plan, which is kind of also this sort of math metal, jazz metal kind of like proggy sound to it. It's like, me as an 18-year-old would be like, what is this? I can't even listen to this stuff. And now as a 36-year-old, this it's my jam.
It's still
You know?
been kind of my mission to try and get into Between the Buried and Me. It's always something that when I've tried to listen to some, I have a really deep appreciation of the musical elements that are going on, but it's always the vocals that throw me off. And it's just I've had a hard time getting into that. So it's like every
Yeah.
like year or two, I try and put what's their really popular album? Something Colors,
Colors.
or
Yeah.
just Colors. Yeah, I always try and
Colors.
throw that on because I know it's like a big album for them, and I just every time I feel like it's a little bit more approachable, but I'm still not quite there.
Well, and that album, other than, I mean, the first track is pretty melodic, but it's short, and then it dumps you right into probably one of the heaviest songs that they have made as a band. Even though the rest of the album has a lot of those proggy elements to it, that first real main song is like insanely heavy. So I can see how it would be off-putting. I really, the Parallax Part 2, which is the album after that, is, or no, excuse me, The Great Misdirect, the album after that, and then The Parallax Part 2, which is the one after, much more proggy, long form songs, and the concepts of their albums, sort of like this, become much more apparent. Like with Absolute Elsewhere, just becomes much more apparent, and they're kind of, even though I love Colors, and Colors, I've seen them play that album all the way through, end to end, and it's an incredible experience. But from somebody coming from a more 70s prog background, the albums that come after that one might be a little bit more approachable for you.
Okay.
So just a recommend. If you wanted to continue on with Between the Buried and Me, and you wanted something that's maybe a little bit more melodic, has a little bit more of a proggy element, Parallax Part 2 is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I'll definitely lean into that. But before we get too off topic, Nick, was there any tracks that stood out to you?
The last one. It
Yeah.
it combined, like, it summed up all the good elements of their sound. It had the extended play, and then of course the very nice fade out to close out the album. It's a good one.
Yeah, totally agree, Nick. That was standout tracks. Oh man, I don't know. Track 2 definitely left an impression on me. I think that's where you get for me, I got really drawn in. I mean, after that immediate hook in track 1, but yeah, the final track, Nick, I do think it's such a good climax. Like, it brings everything together that they've done throughout the album in a nice, concise way. Good flow to it. And there's, narratively, it feels like it brings things to a close. Conceptually, it feels like it brings things to a close. I wrote, all the elements climax with choral bits and symphonic guitars to thrash beats as the whole frequency range is consumed and we transcend the Stargate. And then, like, as it goes into this ambient kind of drift out, I wrote that we join the stardust at a cellular level. We have transcended space-time, and we carry our earthly consciousness. What a journey.
That's really cool.
I'd have to say track 5, the message tablet 2 was kind of the most standout track to me. I mean, for one, it was like, holy shit, this is a Pink Floyd moment. But I like, really, I'd have to say it's almost more the ending of the message tablet 1 into tablet 2, because they they went around and shifted a lot of different directions, but the end of track 4, they had that anthemic guitar solo that was super sick, and then kind of went into this non-linear disillusion of the track into like track 5. The beginning of it was really strong, old school death metal vibes. um and I mean, even track 4 was really strong old school death metal. But track 5, it went into just that old school rock vibe. I mean, there was still,
Oh yeah.
the double bass kicks, but there was a really nice rhythm guitar that was going on with that. Had a really nice break, and then straight into that 70s vibe. That was, I think, the only song where there was the regular vocals. So I mean, of course, that stands out to me, but it was done so well. We talked last session about Eco by David Maxim Mitchik, and I kept saying how it sounded like it was, that rock sound steeped in itself. And I think this whole album kind of had that similar vibe of just being enriched by itself. But I think track 5 was a pretty good example of that. And it just, it was their own sound, but it was so enriched by its influences that I think it really rang true in track 5.
I think that the whole album could be kind of a history of the past 50 years in progressive metal. You could see it as pulling from everything. And Pete, I love what you said about it would be as if like one of those bands like Yes or one of those 70s prog bands were here today, and they were trying to push boundaries with what they had, with everything that was available to them, all of the technical development that had happened. Because like that really felt like what those 70s bands were doing. They were taking everything that they could and they were trying to push it. Well, what has happened over the past 50 years? Like you said, I mean, going into like metal transitioning into things like thrash, black metal, doom metal, these really technical, high speed, kind of savage, for lack of a better word, modes, like those didn't exist in the 70s. And so to see everything, you're pulling like even ambient. You could look at like going back to like prog music in the 70s, like ambient didn't really exist back then. So bringing in the full-fledged ambient elements as well. It feels like they're drawing from everything that they could draw from to push into what's possible with the band arrangement that exists.
Yeah, I looking back, and I've in preparation for this listen, I went back and listened to their previous records, and like Starspawn and Hidden History of the Human Race, and then Time Wave Zero, which is again their ambient album. And this is really they've really connected the two in the fullest. They really kind of put all of their influences out there on this album compared to the previous ones, and it feels like they're wearing their influences on their sleeve more than ever, but it also still feels so it's both derivative but also very mature comparatively. It's really I think they've kind of realized their sound. I don't know what their next album is going to sound like. I can't wait to hear it, but this is kind of this is sort of the perfect blending, I think, of all of the album or all of the tracks and sounds that they've done before. And so for me, track 1 and track 5 are my favorites because it has that old school death metal revival sound to it, but the keyboard or the synth electric guitar duet in the middle of tablet 1 for the Stargate track 1 is just so, like I said, as soon as I heard that on the first listen, I was like, I am all in on this. This is such a great album. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. And then getting to track 5, and I loved everything in between. I think Stargate Tablet 2 with the Tangerine Dream section and how that sort of develops from being this very melodic sound into honestly a very hard-hitting song by the end. The second half of it.
Those squealing guitars. Which, by the way, like the guitars throughout the solos are wild. I mean, maybe you've heard something similar, but like those really high-pitched solos are really unique to me. Really unique sounding. Especially the way they're layered over like a riff or something.
Yeah. And that in that second half of track 2, it's just, I don't know what it is, but the double bass comes in, and I don't know if it's the bass guitar or if what sounds they're bringing in, but there's also this kind of reverberation in with the guitar, and it has this real wall of sound feel to it, and it turns into this really just incredibly intense moment in the album. But
dude,
but then mix. It's incredible, and then that track 5, that real Pink Floyd-esque sound. I love it with the 70s guitar solo. It brings me back thinking about just hearing something like Animals or Metal by Pink Floyd for the first time, and just thinking, I mean, just my brain exploded hearing those things like songs like Echoes and Dogs and Sheep, and those are just such huge songs, and it just really brought me back to that real David Gilmour vocal and the guitar solo, and it's really, really excellent. I love both of those tracks so much.
I think it's worth noting also that right before they did this one, they did pretty much a full ambient album, Time Wave Zero, that feels somewhat conceptually connected, like kind of like a prologue or something.
Well, in Luminescent Bridge, that's really the 2023 EP that came out.
Maybe that was what it was. Luminescent Bridge, not the that's the ambient one. Yeah.
Time Wave Zero is the ambient album, but Luminescent Bridge is where they first tried to put both the death metal together with the ambient work, and it's really good. I highly recommend Peter and Nick and Shaye for that matter. I mean, if you haven't had a chance to listen to Luminescent Bridge, in terms of a kind of prequel to this record, it's excellent. I can't recommend it enough, and it's maybe 20 minutes long, if that.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out for sure.
It's super good.
I want to bring it back to a point that Shay made because I felt it was very poignant. Shay, you said something about this kind of being almost like a history, going through the history of like rock and progressive rock and whatnot. And I kind of look back because I usually will make my notes, but always have a highlighter with me and I highlight very specific like things for like talking points and stuff. And I'm looking back at my highlights and I'm noticing kind of the pattern, like um, uh, from track one. I felt that really had kind of that 60s 70s prog rock like the vibes. Track two really went into like the 70s sound, and then track three I wrote that the bridge in track three felt very 80s rock. It felt it had kind of that stadium anthemic vibe to it in the bridge, and I had wrote that it was very 80s, and then seeing my notes into like track four and five, the old school death metal vibes, and then track six I had wrote that after it went balls to the walls, we were almost in like a hippie drum circle vibe, and then I wrote that we're in like jam band territory, which is very 2000s. Um, and so yeah, it really is like
it's a good point.
A history of rock and prog rock and everything. They really went through all of it, but none of it sounded like it was straight out of that era. It just
Right, it
strongly blended, strongly influenced, and everything. It really was a history of rock disguised as this album,
this single conceptual album.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's what I think the real magic is behind this album, is their ability to have done that. And they nailed it. And I think, how you were talking about, or we were talking about how they wear their influences on their sleeve. I don't know that it's necessarily just that, in so much as that their influences happen to be some of the kind of pinnacle moments of prog rock history. Like, or just that space of metal and rock music. Like maybe they were trying to bring things in just because, they felt like it was an important element to add, but I don't know. It really feels true to the fact that like this band's actual influences are some of the primary influencers in rock and metal over the past 50 years. But also with, like, they obviously clearly have an ambient influence as well. I know that they use Brian Eno's Oblique Strategies. They recorded in, like, that studio that they were in was a studio that Brian Eno produced in.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot Brian Eno was also one of the guys who recorded in, what is that? The Hansa Ton Studio?
Yeah.
In Berlin. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the production video, they're pulling Oblique Strategies cards, and like they show Brian Eno's signature on the wall and stuff. So he's clearly an influence in here too, which I think is really cool, and probably the outlier. Honestly, I think it's interesting to think about like that you have. I mean, even Tangerine Dream as a electronic prog influence from like the 70s and 80s, well 90s, throughout whatever. They still kind of fit into that prog rock vibe. So it's interesting that like of all of these, it feels like a history of all of that, but then also with ambient music clearly wrapped into it as well. And I'm not sure what that would be. Something I would love to ask them, like why that in here as well.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed Pete's submission of such a nostalgic and sick album for today. This episode has been edited for time, so if you would like to hear the full, uncut conversation, please subscribe to our Patreon, which will have tons of additional bonus content. If you feel that we missed something today or disagree with us, please feel free to comment or contact us to let us know at remotelisteningparty@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, and the most interesting comments will be read on a future episode. All right, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the RLP podcast. Please join us again next week as we listen to Listening Tree by Tim Exile, presented by Shaye McDonald. And as always, keep your ears hungry.